Welcome to Wool and Spinning. My name is Rachel. It is Tuesday, May 3rd already, 2022. It is so good to see everybody and to have you here. Thank you so much for being here. I just realized that I'm kind of sitting in the dark. I forgot to turn the lights on. Woo. It's bright, and then the cameras readjust. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've had a good couple of weeks. It's been kind of a bit of a blur. I managed to fit in a couple of shifts at work, and the kids have been working on projects and big stuff that they're doing. Nora's working on a snowy owl inquiry project, and James is working on a natural resources project. So it's been kind of just, go, go, go. It's good to see everybody. Thank you for being here. We've got Eve and Vicky, Dagmar, Amanda's here, Sherry, Sarah, Elizabeth. I'm not going to be able to name everybody off. There's so many people here. Dion and Amanda, Mary, Glenda, Taziana, Dana, Christine, Suzanne, Dorothy. It's so good to see everybody. Janine, first time she's been able to make the stream in a couple months. That's awesome. Leanne is here. Sam, Charlotte. It's so good to see you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to know what you're working on. So tell us in the chat what you're working on. I would like to take a moment just to welcome and say thank you to those who continue to watch the show week in, week out. I appreciate you watching and being here and being present. Your support means the world to me. And to those who are patrons of the show, thank you for your ongoing support. You are welcome in this community and you're welcome here. And I hope that there is something here for everybody. I have noticed in the last, probably over the last year, like just how much the people are doing, and just they're ramping up constantly what they're doing and upping the ante for all of us. And I just think it's so inspirational and supportive, and it's very, very exciting. So thank you to you guys. Dion's asking, are you working less and less at the hospital? I'm trying to do what I need to do to sort of make sure that I'm there enough that I feel connected, but that I can also balance everything at home. So it's definitely a balancing act. It changes month to month. I just try to, be really sort of honest with myself about what I can do and how much I can do, and trying to take some time for myself, because I was finding that particularly come February and early March, I was really starting to run out of steam, and just feeling like I had a little bit too much on my plate and a little bit too many balls in the air, and what could I let go of? So yeah, just trying to do my best, just like everybody, right? So yeah, it's really good. Amanda says the intro music makes me feel immediately relaxed. That's awesome. Taziana says I like it a lot. I was worried I was going to find the ribbing tedious. So what are you working on, Taziana? I'm just looking back at the chat. You're working on something. I'm borrowing hospital Wi-Fi to hang out with you guys in my first hand-spun sock cast on. That's awesome. Sarah got a new wheel on Saturday. It's a Magikarp Rose. I'm getting a Rose too. We're going to be wheel twins. And I'm spinning some Cheviot from Stash. That's amazing. Amanda is spinning Cheviot for the first time as well. You guys know that Cheviot. Some people say Cheviot. Cheviot's my favorite. So yeah, Sam's got another Rose in the group. There's a bunch of us that have Rose, and then I'll be one of them soon. And then Leanne is working on assembling her OHS binder. So Leanne, I think, is finishing up her Unit 1, so she's getting that all ready to go. That's really exciting. Hannah's sneaking in at work. I could just sit here and look at chat all day. I don't need to podcast. I can just talk to you guys. So I know Jenny loves hers as well. There's a number of people in the community that have roses, so it's exciting. I came by mine honestly. Mine is going to be sort of rehomed, if you will. So that's sort of how I ended up getting one. I'll tell you guys the story another time. All right, so welcome to the show today. We have quite a lot to talk about. I have finally cleared off the bobbins and gotten stuff plied. Two of these things, this spin over here and this spin here, have been on my storage bobbins for a very long time, a number of months. For me, that's a long time because I generally ply as soon as I spin. So I finally have some fresh stuff off of the wheels, some inspiration and things that I'm thinking about, and I'm excited to share that with you. The reason why the show today is called Rip It, Rip It, Rip It, and for those who don't know like aren't as familiar with the knitting world as some of us are, when somebody says rip it, or they say I'm going to frog something, it means that you're pulling it out. So somebody might say, oh, I'm frogging the sweater. It's because you rip it, rip it, rip it. Sort of sounds like ribbit. So I ripped out my wool and honey, and we'll talk about that after the intro. I got some spindling done at soccer practice over the last couple weeks, so I thought I'd give you a bit of an update about that. And we have a poll going on in the community, so I would like to hear your feedback and find out from you guys how you would like me to spin my next braid from stash. As you guys know, my focus over the next couple of years is to significantly stash down. And so I've been working my way through old braids that I've been hanging on to for a very long time that just need to get spun. And as a bonus, because, you know, when you don't podcast for 2 weeks, I've got lots to share with you, which is the whole reason for going to a bi-monthly show instead of a weekly show, is I cast on something new because I was so frustrated with where I was at with wool and honey, and I was just needing a bit of a mental break, that I decided to cast something new on. So I'll share that with you guys as well. So I will see you on the other side. Oh my goodness, you guys, I almost just hit stop streaming. I almost hit the wrong button. I was like, why would I be all the way over there? Why am I hitting that button? Oops. So if that ever happens, just go straight to Patreon. It's like an exit plan. If that ever happens, go straight to Patreon and refresh the post for that episode, like for the live stream post. It comes up the day before. Refresh it until there's a new link. And it will get up and running sort of as quickly as possible again. But yeah, if that ever happens and the stream just kind of stops, go to the Patreon post that you got the link from originally, and I'll repopulate it as quickly as possible if I can. Like if it's something that I did and it wasn't like a tech error or something going on, like, you know, from the powers that be on the internets. So yeah, I can't believe I almost hit stop streaming. So before I forget, because I am inclined to forget, because we tend to sort of fall down rabbit holes and we get off topic and we talk about lots of different things, I wanted to do this first. So this is Nimble. This is Hello Yarn Fiber Club from May of 2021. So it's actually not that old. It's been in my stash for a little while. This is Falkland wool, and I love Falkland. You guys know it's one of my absolute most favorites. This is the colors from the back. I took a photo, and it is on the Patreon post associated with this. So this is open to everybody. And I won't choose how to spin this until probably sometime on the weekend, maybe next week. I would love to get it on the wheels on Mother's Day on Sunday, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. So if you would like to vote and you would like to say how you would like me to spin it, please go to the link that I just posted in the live stream, in the chat, in the live chat. Click that. This is not just for patrons, this is for everybody, and tell me how you would like to see it spun. So there's a couple of different options. I could strip it end to end, strip it in half, spin it end to end, and do a traditional 2-ply. That's one of the options. Second one is a center pull 2-ply, so spin it end to end and then ply it back on itself. A traditional 3-ply, so strip it twice and then spin each end to end and ply for a 3-ply. And then singles. The fifth option would be a blended 3-ply, so strip it down many times and then spin to 3 bobbins and ply it. So far that one's winning, but only by one vote. The next sort of closest is the singles. And then the final option that I threw in there for number 6 is a blended 4-ply. So I would probably strip that down 3 times for 4 strips of fiber and spin them end to end and then ply. That one is sadly losing. So for one of the other skeins that we did a vote for last time, which is this one here, we'll talk about it. We did a blended traditional 3-ply for that one, and we'll talk about that later in the show. So I'm not surprised that that one's not getting a lot of votes, because we kind of did it for the last one. So go ahead and vote. Let me know. What do you think you want? Nope, that's not, it doesn't matter. You don't get to vote on how I spin this based on what I want to make. I just want to get this stuff spun. It doesn't matter what I'm going to make afterwards. I have decided that with these braids, I have them in my stash, and I just want to get them spun. I don't care how they're spun. I've had them for so long. I just want to spin them. So I thought it would be really fun to continue to sort of pull these out, and you guys get to tell me how you want to see them spun. And you know, there's more engagement, there's more chat. You guys can debate. Lots of people have left comments, and yeah, we can talk about what ends up happening. So it doesn't matter what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might do nothing with it. Who knows? Maybe I'll end up with a whole bunch of these skeins and I'll end up selling them. I don't know. I have no idea. So vote, and we'll see what you guys decide. This is my hound design, who unfortunately he's not making spindles anymore, but I've been standing at the soccer field a lot over the last over the spring session for soccer, because both kids play twice a week plus their academy plus games. So I've ended up spinning quite a bit this spring. This little hound design is his lace spindle, and like I said, he's not making them anymore. But I've been spinning up this Cormo. So we talked about this a few shows ago, and I've been storing all of the singles on my storage bobbins. I use Leclerc sectional warping bobbins to store all of my singles because I have tons of them, and I don't sectionally warp. I have a sectional warping setup. I just am currently not sectionally warping. So I sort of thought that I may as well use the sectional warping bobbins as storage bobbins in the meantime. So I've been winding off my singles as I've been spinning them. And this is my Cormo. And I've talked about this Cormo so much. It's been going on for quite a couple of years now. It's getting kind of annoying, at least for me. But I did make another big dent into the fiber. And it's so funny because I have been doing this on my support spindles. I've been spinning it on my suspended spindles, which is what this is. And I went to pull more fiber out of the bag the other day to refill my sort of spindle bag, if you will, that I carry around with me to work on. And I'm actually getting through it. Like, there's actually a third of the fiber gone. I was just like, oh my goodness, it's actually like getting used up. So this is a full pound. As far as I remember, I did weigh it and I can't remember. I think it was a pound of fiber in total. So this is probably going to make quite a lot. I'm torn between a 2-ply, a 3-ply, a 4-ply. What am I going to do with it? Because this is a question. This originally was going to be a sweater. And I sort of thought, oh yeah, you know, I'll spin for a sweater. I'll do it on support spindles. It'll be a year-long project, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'll spin the singles this year and then I'll you know, make the sweater next year kind of thing. But the more I'm looking at this fiber and the more I'm working with it, it's a bit difficult to draft really super evenly. It's going to be a bit thick and thin. It's got neps in it. It's sort of, it'll be fine once it's plied and spun up and stuff, but it's not, yeah, it's not as consistent as I would like it to be. So, you know, I could do a 3-ply, I could even do a 4-ply, and then depending on the yardage thereafter, I can decide what I want to do with it and whether or not I do want to use it in a sweater. If I go with a 2-ply and it's a little bit inconsistent, a little bit thick and thin, I could do a blanket. Like, I probably will have enough yardage for that, for a lightweight blanket. Dye it up, do like a resist warp or something, like, you know, chain up the warp super tightly and then do a resist dye. Who knows? So I'm just working my way through that. And I did start spinning it on one of my Kapar, my little Kapar Turkish spindles as well. This is more fiber that I was spinning. This is one night at soccer practice worth of spinning, but this little spindle is not quite fast enough for this fiber. So as I was spinning on it, I just was finding it's just not quite fast enough. And I think it's because now coming to it from my support spindles, and some of my support spindles are so fast that I just find some of these, they're just not as fast. I can't flick them with enough vigor to get, even with like, even with a little bit of wetting my thumb and my pointer finger, it's just still not quite fast enough. So I abandoned this. I'll wind it off. This was a little bit better. And my two Bosworth spindles were really quick too. And I've got fiber going on to one of my Bosworth drop spindles currently as well. I've just been spinning away. Sometimes I can't always sit down when I'm at soccer practice. A couple of the fields, there's concrete benches that you can sit on. So those practices I support spindle. And then the practices where there's nowhere to sit, because I'm not going to start taking a chair and stuff. I am more than capable of standing there for an hour. Then I drop spindle. So that's kind of what I've ended up doing. So yeah. Taziana says every braid I spin is a 2 or 3 ply fractal, so I voted for something completely different. That's great. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Ashley says, my first live stream in ages. So much has changed. I'm so glad to be getting back to some fiber fun. It's good to see you, Ashley. I hope you're doing really well. Yeah, I knew that's why you were asking, Dorothy. She says, I was just asking because I would have chosen the spin style based on what you wanted to do with the fiber. Yeah, and normally that's what I would do. I would work backwards. You know, what do I want to do with this fiber? What am I thinking about? What are some of my general ideas? And then I'll spin it that way. But these 4-ounce braids, they're not big enough to do a big project with. So that's why I thought, let's take the pressure out of making with them and let's just do something fun. So yeah. Oh, Christine, yeah, unsurprisingly, I've gone for traditional 3-ply from thin strips because that's usually how I spin braids like that. Totally. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about my woolen honey. This has sort of been, I'm actually not going to move around. You guys can see where I'm at with it, and you maybe will remember from last show, and if not, I will not take it personally, how much further along I was. So I'm just going to change the camera slightly. And you will see that previously this sweater was all the way down here. So I was actually at the point where the yoke was almost finished and I had one more of the honeycombs to do. And then I was ready to separate for the sleeves. The problem was, you can see on the dress form, the sweater came down like way past my bra line. And it was so big, and I had already stopped doing any increases. So at about the underarm, I realized how big it was getting. And so I thought, well, I'll just keep building it and it'll be kind of more like a swancho, but I will stop increasing, which is fine. It didn't, as you can see, it didn't change the shape of the honeycombs at all, because your increases are going on the outside of the honeycombs. So in those spaces where you've got those that lots of garter stitch there and there's no honeycombs, that's where the increases go. So I had stopped increasing, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just don't look great in that shape, and that's not really how the sweater is supposed to fit. So I took a deep breath. I talked to my friend Lauren, who's part of our community, and I was like, I'm going to rip it out. And she's like, do it, because you're not going to wear it. So I ripped it out. So I broke I actually, because it was such a monster skein, this is yarn from Disdarrow Ranch. This is their mocha base, I think. I always pause when I say that, but I'm pretty sure this is the mocha. We had this conversation last show, and the skeins are so big you can't even twist them into a skein. That's how big they are, and they're like 800 yards or 700 yards or something per skein. So where I was in the sweater at this point, I broke the yarn, and then I was able to just wind it back into a center pull ball, so that now I've rebuilt it up to this point. And I just, while I was debating about whether or not to pull it or not and whether or not to rip it out, I just kept thinking, if I don't, this yarn will be in this sweater, and I'll get further and further along, and I'll feel more and more frustrated, more and more upset that I didn't pull it out, because it'll just be so big. And it's just huge. And so I went back before I ripped it out. I checked my gauge, and I've done a gauge swatch for this sweater. Like, I'm not that far off. I'm only off by like an inch, or sorry, by an inch, by a couple of stitches. And it was actually on the smaller side. So this should have been fine. And so I was looking at it, and I was like debating what I had done wrong. And I was like, you know, I had gauge and blah, blah, blah. I've already knit this thing before, so this is already the second time. Now it's the third time. Like, what is going on? I mixed up the needles. So I was supposed to be knitting on 3.5 millimeter needles, and I was knitting on 3.75. And I think it is pretty incredible at how much of a difference that made. Like, the fact that this is so much bigger, and now it's knitting more to size, and even the floats on the fabric are appropriate now. Like, here they were loose and they didn't look quite right. When I stretched the fabric, they looked fine, and it probably would have blocked out, but now the floats look more like how they're supposed to look, and they're not quite so big. But isn't that interesting? Just 0.25 millimeters, and just enough to change my gauge that much, that I went from 27 stitches over 4 inches to, when I measured this, not washed, not blocked, before I ripped it, I was down to 23 stitches per 4 inches. I lost 4 stitches. It's crazy. And the thing is that around a garment, especially a garment that already has positive ease, you end up with a really significant size problem. So beware. And I was working on my Chow Goos with this, and I think that because I have them all in one, I don't have it right here, but the way that my Chow Goos are kind of organized, I think I used the right needles for swatching, and then somehow they got mixed up. Between the swatching and casting it back on and redoing it and blah, blah, blah. Somewhere along the line, they got mixed up. Isn't that crazy? So, yeah. Oh, Mary voted for singles for the Falkland. It'll make lovely weft for a woven blanket. Actually, it's so funny you would say that, Mary, because I was thinking the exact same thing. And I was actually thinking that it would be, if I did a 2-ply for the warp, I could do singles, the Falkland singles, and I maybe would have enough yardage to do a simple top. Not big long sleeves, but just a simple top. So you and I, we're on the same wavelength there. So yeah, so that's what got ripped. And the thing is that it hurt because it was such a huge amount of knitting. This pattern is definitely knit intensive, just like the stone crop pullover, just like the shifty pullover. There's a lot of knitting in them. You're doing something every single row, and to have to kind of go back and do that, I was just like, deep breath. So that's that. Now, why don't we talk about the sweater that I cast on this week? And actually, I'll go to the product camera. Where did my bag go? I have to reach for my bag. So this is Deep Stash. This yarn has been in my stash for, not this yarn, this yarn. This yarn has been in my stash for, I actually looked back. I was trying to figure out how long it's been in my stash for. And it's actually been, the order is from 2020. So it's not actually as old as I thought it was, but the thing is that I actually don't have that much yarn in my stash anymore. I've gotten rid of so much and moved stuff around, and I've worked with it. Like, this sweater was a Deep Stash dye from I bought this yarn in like 2014, 2013 maybe, and I just finished this sweater. This is the Farmhouse by Amy Christophers. So this was Deep Stash that I had bought back in 2020. It was right before the pandemic. It was in February of the pandemic, just before the pandemic started. And I had bought this with the intention of knitting a colorwork sweater. And this was going to be the main color, and this was going to be the yoke. I don't know why. I don't work with colors that are bright like this. I tend to work more like with neutrals and grays and browns, and I have no idea what I was thinking. I suspect I was looking for a pop of color and some brightness. That winter was pretty dark, even before the pandemic. My dad had just died. My sister-in-law's mom died unexpectedly as well. It was just a really tough winter, and I think that I bought this for color. I think. I'm going to go with that. I know that I didn't have a pattern. I know that I didn't know what I was going to make. I just made sure that I bought enough yarn for like to do a sweater. That's all. I remember that. So there's 5 skeins of this wine purple color, and there were 2 skeins of the teal turquoisey kind of color. So I've been wanting to make this for a while, and this is After Party, and I can't remember who it's by. I'm totally blanking. And I started this on Sunday. So today is Tuesday, so I started it 2 days ago. And this is worsted weight, and the pattern is actually for DK, or maybe even a sport weight. Now I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up because I'm gonna forget. So it's by Astrid Troland, and I'll put the link for the pattern in the chat. And it's knit in fingering weight yarn. That's what it was. It's fingering weight yarn, but the gauge is weird. So seems to be a theme today. It's fingering weight yarn, but it's 22 stitches over 4 inches. So when I went to look, I talked to Amanda, who's actually here today. I said to her, like, do you think I could adjust it? Like, before I purchased the pattern, like, do you think that I could probably adjust it based on you having knit it? And she's like, yeah, I think so. It's not that complicated. So I was like, okay, done. So I bought the pattern, and sure enough, it's a bottom-up sweater, and I've done the color work at the bottom of the sweater, and then this same color work is at the bottom of the sleeves too, which is lovely. So Sam says she'll wear it if I change my mind. I love it. So, and then the yoke of this sweater it's a full yoke. You've got 3 or 4 different sort of patterns, if you will, but they're all based off of like the one chart. I think there's 3 charts in total, but they're all quite small, and they just go across the yoke. And I'm planning, I've built in some positive ease with this, because one of the things I have found with my pink velvet and my Lunenburg pullover, both of those, they were knit with positive ease, and I've worn them a lot. And I think it's because they're quite versatile. I can tuck them into my jeans if I want to. I can wear them just as big pullovers. Like they're just really versatile. They fit really well. So this is obviously bottom up, and then I'll do the sleeves, and then I'll work on the yoke, and I'm in no rush. It's just been a nice mental break from wool and honey. All right, so let's talk about yarn. Let's talk about more yarn. We always talk about yarn. Let's talk about even more. So, what do you guys want to start with? Do you want to start with the Tofino Road Trip, the Sheep Spot, White-Faced Woodland, or the School of Sweet Georgia? Or sorry, not School, Sweet Georgia. These are both Sweet Georgia. This is Sweet Georgia. Sweet Georgia Hearth on Silk Puff, and this one is BFL Silk Sweet Georgia as well. Elizabeth says she knit After Party a few years ago. It's one of my favorite sweaters. Oh, that's fantastic. So I've heard a few people say that After Party is one of their favorites. So Dion said Road Trip, and Charlotte said Start on the Left. So that's the same thing. So that's perfect. All right. We're going to do a little fun little thing before we go on. This is just so that you guys can start generating ideas. This is 8 ounces of spinning. This skein is as big as my head. So based on 8 ounces of spinning, and it's a 2-ply, in the chat, how many yards do you think this is? And we'll get to that. So this was the Tofino Road Trip. So this ended up being really fun. I spun this as a 3-ply fractal, and this, divided up the 2 braids. I had 2 braids, each 4 ounces, 115 grams. And as you can see here, I divided them all up so that I could do a 3-ply fractal. So I spun the one end to end, and then I spun the next bobbin 2 strips, and then the last bobbin was 5 times. And I did this on my Lendrum Saxony, and actually it's funny because when I was plying, one of the bobbins, and I'm not exactly sure which one it was, and I'm not sure which one of the 3 original bobbins it was, it kept breaking. So there definitely wasn't enough twist in it in that 3rd singles, and I realized that it was just a little bit less twist than the other 2. It's ended up being fine, but it definitely was something that I had to like sort of stop and go, okay, like this is something I'm going to have to pay attention to in the future, because I do find that the 18-to-1 for me and for how slowly I treadle, it's just not fast enough. So that was really interesting. However, we'll go back to the other screen. However, and then I did have 2 of the bobbins, there was some leftovers, and then one of those 2 there was even more. So I ended up actually being able to do a 2-ply. These are washed and finished. This one is not, but these 2 are. I ended up being able to do a little 2-ply, little bitty 2-ply, and actually, like, you can see how lofty and lightly spun that is. The singles are kind of nestled in together. They're not super differentiated from each other or over twisted or overspun. They're just really, really lovely and light and airy. I suspect the grist on this 2-ply, this leftover 2-ply, is very, very, very high. I haven't figured it out. It was how many? It was 176 yards, but I'm not sure what it weighs. So, you know, even then I got quite a lot of yardage, like 176 yards. I could actually do like, some color work in a toque, some contrast color and some mitts. Like 176 yards goes a long way. So, yeah. So that was the 2-ply, but the 3-ply fractal is what is the showstopper in my opinion. It was absolutely the right decision to spin this as a 3-ply fractal. There's lots of barber poling in it, but it's very, very pleasant. I just need to open it up a bit because it's been skeined for the last week. And let me see if I can open it up for you guys. So if I lay it down here, you can really see how it transitions between all of the colors. So there's all that blue, and then you've got all of that yellow and ochre there with some barber poling on either side as it transitions. And then you've got that brown in there. Again, it barber poles on either side where it transitions, and then there's some solid in there. And then you've got the ochre again. Again, it all matched up, and then it transitioned again. It just worked out really, really well. And this was, I think, one of the most consistent yarns that I've ever spun. Like, it's just unbelievably consistent. Even when I was plying it, I was noticing that the singles were really, really, really consistent and well spun. My original plan with this, and I'm actually kind of going back to it again. I kind of got away from it when I was in the plying stage, and now I'm kind of back to it again, was to put this with my Beaumont BFL that I spun a few months ago and alternate them in the warp and then do a white weft and create a fabric. There's a fantastic fabric on Jamie and the Jones on their website. And I was actually talking to Virtual Spin Group about this morning. So I will link it in the chat because I still have it up on my browser. But you guys can see what it looks like. And that fabric is kind of where the original inspiration for this came from. But because there's the white in there, it would work really well, and it would kind of create that confetti kind of look with that barber poling. It's also a lot of work to put into a weaving that's going to get fulled a little bit, but like, how cool would it be to have a woven top out of this? Like, it just, so I'm torn. What I thought I would do as sort of a middle ground was to actually take some of this and sample it on my Zoom loom with the BFL Beaumont. So do one as warp, one as weft on the zoom loom. And then just to play with it, just to visualize it and see it. And if it's really exciting, then I might do a slightly larger sample on my Jane loom, my Louette Jane, because it doesn't, I could do a dummy warp. I could just, you know, put it on quickly and do that. So that was that spin. It was done on my Lundrum Saxony at 18-1. The singles were not really super high twist. They were just, you know, other than that one bobbin that got to be a bit lower twist. And I think it was just maybe spinning, not being quite as aware of how truly slow I was treadling, needing to kind of speed myself up a little bit. And then medium twist for the ply. So we had talked a while ago about the 3 samples that I had done that were the low twist ply, medium twist ply, and the high twist ply. So I had said at that time that I would go with the medium twist ply, and that I would do I think it was 4, 5, and 6 treadles, like, because it was enough of a difference on my Magikarp Susie at 28-1 to create that different yarn. And this ended up, I did the medium ply, just like I said I would, but it was fun for us to see the difference between the 3 yarns. That was this one here. So there's, it just needs to cycle through, but there's the 3 little mini skeins. And if you look to your far right, that skein at the end was the really high twist, and that was only 6 treadles over about 20 inches on, but it was enough to push the yarn into that next realm of crazy twisted. And then the low twist one, which is closest to me on this side once we get to the photo, was only 4 treadles, I think, or maybe it was 2 treadles. 2, 4, 6 maybe was how I did it. It was quite under twisted, and you could see how the yarn was trying to push out rather than getting that really corkscrew type look that you get when it's high twist. With that, it was underplied, so the yarn was pushing back, trying to balance itself and trying to get itself sorted out. So yeah, that's right, Charlotte. So the it's alternating warp, and then the weft is all cream. And so this is the photo here. So we've got the low twist on the far, I've got it the opposite, on the far side, and then we had the high twist down below closest to me. For that fabric, the one that's on Jamie and the Jones that I linked to in the show notes, the warp is the color alternated with the white weft, with the white, so it's one end of color, one end of white. And then for the weft, Kelly and I, and well, actually Dorothy too, we think that the weft is actually slightly finer. So when you look at the fabric and you really look at it and you zoom in, it looks like the weft, it's all white, and it looks like it's actually a little bit finer. So maybe 1 count finer, which is kind of interesting. So yeah. The road trip was 2 braids, so it was 8 ounces in total. Yeah. All right, so then the white-faced woodland, this is Sheep Spot. This is Russian Squirrel from their fiber club, from Sasha's Fiber Club in 2016. So this had been in my stash. Again, I have some photos of what it looked like originally. And it was all of this gray and this sort of these hits of pink, and that orange was in there, that corally orange. It's not true orange. And I was just paralyzed. I didn't know how to spin it. Like I loved it so much, and I just didn't know how to spin it. I was really torn. So we put up a poll on Patreon, and I was like, tell me how to spin it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, so it doesn't matter. Just tell me how to spin it. And I think it was the traditional 3-ply that went out, and we just spun it end to end. I'll take off the label and I'll hold it out for you guys. I spun this on my Lundrum Saxony as well. There seems to be a theme here. I think it's because it's been free lately, and I've been really enjoying working on it, I have to say. And then this is the finished yarn. So this is a 3-ply. I spun it very fine. It's very bouncy. It's very woolen. Even though I spun it continuous back, so back, 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 and on. I think it's just the nature of the fiber. It's bouncy and springy, a bit downy. It feels a bit three-dimensional in terms of the crimp. And you can see how, because I spun it that traditional 3-ply and I stripped it twice, so that gave me 3 lengths of fiber. I spun them each end to end. And you can see how what ended up happening was you got these little areas of barber pulling where where it's transitioning in the color, but then you get these long, slow transitions where you get areas where it's the solid, which is exactly what I was hoping for. It preserved the underlying colorway without sort of mucking with it too much. And I think it worked out really super well. It's lovely. So you've got the gray in here, transitioning to the pink, transitioning back to the orange, which is underneath here, transitioning to the gray, back to the pink, and the orange in here. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I have to admit, there's a few braids that I've spun lately. I don't really want to stash them. Like, I want to do something with them, but you know, there's this thing called time and other commitments, and you guys all know we're all in the same boat with lots of things that we've got on our plates and just trying to figure out how to balance it all. So there's a couple of questions. Amanda said it might be easier to alternate the weft so that you can have a consistent yarn in the warp to avoid tension issues. That's a great point, actually, Amanda, to that fabric that I was mentioning about. That's actually a really good thought. And then do you have to wait? Do you have the weight of the finished skein? I have an 8-ounce project on my wheel and I'm waffling over skeining it as one big skein, trying to split or trying to split it in the middle. Yeah, I'm always torn about that too, Taziana, like whether or not I should do a smaller skein or if I should just do one big giant skein. This one is 8 ounces and this one is 8 ounces, and I applied them all to one bobbin and then I just wound them off into one ball. For me, I get to that point where I can't skein yarn and do a nice job when I have 3 braids. So then I would do, I would try to do 2 equal weight skeins. So if I have 3 braids and I've got 12 ounces of fiber, then I would divide it up on, I would try to apply to 2 bobbins and have 2 skeins. But when it's 8 ounces, I tend to just go for 1 skein. So this is 8 ounces, this is 8 ounces. So these are both 2 skeins. And you can see the size difference. Like this one is, you can see there's a theme here with color. This one's a 4-ounce braid and this is 8 ounces. It's not that much bigger, but you've got different fiber. So this is the white-faced woodland. It's very bouncy, springy. It's got a lot of bulk. It's downy. It's got that 3D crimp. So it's pushing against itself and it just takes up more space. It's light. It's lofty. This was 410 yards. So this was 467 yards and this one was 410 yards. So with that extra 4 ounces of fiber, I didn't get that much more yardage, not that much. It's not double. So, and you can see how much space that takes up. And then the 8-ounce skein, you know, this is merino and silk. Superwash merino and silk. It's called Silk Puff. There's the thing there. There was a dye error. That's why it was 30% off. So I would just do 1 big skein personally. Okay, somebody actually did guess the yardage correctly. Okay, so there were lots and lots of guesses. So Vicky said 908. Vicky just kept throwing out ideas. I love it. 908, 1187. I love the randomness of the numbers, Vicky. Janine said 950 yards. Dorothy said 850 yards. Suzanne said 920. Charlotte said 750. Dagmar said 900. Glenda said 1100. Hannah said 874. Amy said 1,200 meters. I'm not sure what that is in yards. I live in a metric country. I really should do things metric, but I was taught all imperial, you know, which is not helpful. Anyhow, in the middle of all of this, Vicky threw out the most random number ever, which was 1,462 yards. So 1,462. And I am pleased to say, I can't believe you got it. so I've not washed this. This is pre-washing yardage, okay? It was 1,482 yards. So nobody guessed high enough, but Vicky got the closest at just shy of 20 yards. How crazy is that? So somebody commented about the white-faced woodland that it's going to knit up really stripy. Absolutely, and so will this. And I'll show you why in a minute. So this was spun and on my Ashford e-spinner. I started working on it back in November. It was in a total just trying to clear out stash and trying to get stash out of my stash. It's very profound. You know, nothing but wordplay here at Wool and Spinning. And I had these 2 8-ounce braids that I had bought the last time I had been in Sweet Georgia, along with the Tofino road trip with Rebecca. The last time we were in Sweet Georgia before the lockdowns, the first set of lockdowns. So we were in there on March 17th, 2020. Ask me how I know. It was my dad's birthday, and it was the day that everything shut down. And I had bought this because it was 30% off, and I thought I could do something with that. I love those colors. They're great colors. I could definitely do something with it. So it sat in my stash until November, and because I had pulled out the Tofino road trip, I wanted to get this out as well and get this done, because my plan was to get them done during the pandemic. So I still had time. And what I ended up doing with the 2 4-ounce braids, I kind of started it on a whim one night. While we were watching a movie. I literally started spinning it. I did nothing to the prep. I didn't even barely unbraid it. I showed lots and lots of video on the podcast back in October of me spinning it on the e-spinner, how much twist I put into those singles. So please go back and look at those episodes if you're a little bit behind, or if you're new to viewing the show, or you're not familiar. There was lots of video of me actually spinning it. So it was very high twist singles. And once I had all of the singles stored onto storage bobbins, I kind of just stalled out because I knew that the plying was going to be epic. I knew it was going to take many days. I knew that it wasn't going to happen all at once. I was torn about doing it on my Ashford, on my e-spinner versus like my Majicraft Susie, because I prefer to ply on my Susie. I knew that if I plied on my Susie, it would take forever. So I just kind of stalled out on it. But you can see that because I spun this end to end, each braid, and I spun them from the same end so that the colors would repeat, you can see how, once again, same with the other 2, you've got these long, slow transitions of color. So you've got that gorgeous gray, purpley brown, and then it transitions into the orange, this beautiful coral color. And then you go back into the gray brown, and then you go back into the coral, and it just goes back and forth. And there's some ochre, golden yellow in there. You can see that really well over here, actually. And then back into the coral. And one of the 2 braids must have been a little bit different, or had quite a bit more fiber on it, or who knows. I spun differently. So I ended up with a mini skein of chain plied yarn. So again, this isn't finished, but you can see how the traditional 2-ply spun end to end, and the chain ply, which I never chain ply. I had that question asked this past week, actually, about chain plying, and like I just don't do it. But you can see how, like, in some ways they're actually quite similar, except that you've got those transitions of color in there. And this is just cleaner in terms of color management and keeping the color clean. And you transition between the colors a little bit more quickly. So it's sort of one color ends, the next color starts. So yeah, the funny thing is that I ended up spinning this. I did end up plying this on my Majicraft Susie. I wasn't going to, but in the end I did, because a friend of mine gave me, there's a whole story attached to it. I already told it this morning in virtual spin group. It's a hoot, it's a riot. I will tell you guys one day, maybe when I get maybe in Maker Morning, I'll tell you guys, because it's quite a long story. But I was given a jumbo flyer and a jumbo bobbin for the Majicraft. So it's coming with the rose, but she gave it to me early. And so I have a jumbo flyer and a jumbo bobbin for my Susie now. And so I thought, you know what? It's a sign. I'll put it through its paces. It's never been used. It didn't have a leader on it or anything. It's never been used. And I thought I'll put it on my Susie and give it a run, and give it an opportunity to shine before I get the rose, because the rose comes with a woolly winder. So yeah. Amy, great question. Why don't you chain ply? I don't like so I have, I'm a swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer, and my shoulders are, my shoulders are actually really, really good now. And I would actually even say that I'm probably fully rehabbed. But I get really stiff. So if I turn my body and do a lot of this type of motion, where I go, it's why I don't do long draw a ton actually. And that pulling motion, it actually bugs my shoulder quite a bit. The other reason is I don't love those quick transitions of color. I don't know if I can find an example on this little skein. I much prefer this type of a transition where you have that slower barber pulling. And it's not because I particularly like it in the skein. It's because I like it in the knitted object or in the woven project. Whereas when you chain ply, you tend to have more, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find one, but one color ends and the other color starts, and you generally only have a short distance where you have that color transition because you're folding the yarn on itself, right? It's just not my favorite. And for weaving, I really prefer, if I'm going to use something for weaving, and especially because these projects don't really have a goal in mind, I would rather that they didn't have knots. On the loom under tension, if one of these knots that you chain ply comes apart, there is that potential, and there's sort of that old wives' tale out there, that it'll pull and break that entire section of yarn. Whereas if you have a 3-ply, for example, versus a chain ply, which is a 3-ply. Some people say it's a singles that's been folded. So some people make that distinction. They'll even go a bit further. If one of your singles breaks in this, the other two remain intact. And so structurally, it's a stronger yarn than your chain ply. The other thing is chain ply is not great for certain longer stapled fibers. So if you've got like, anything that's a longer wool blended in, or, a llama or an alpaca that's a little bit longer stapled, some of those fibers, mohair, they don't bend. They tend to more loop and curl, but they don't bend like the high crimp wools do. So if I chain ply, which is very, very rare, I will chain ply the fine wools. So, Polworth, Cormo, Merino, even BFL, I don't really like to chain ply. Falkland, what other ones? Yeah, so that's actually, Dion, what I did. I was thinking of you the whole time. She said I used my jumbo plus my high-speed whirl to ply. That's what I was doing. I was on 28-1, and with the jumbo, I felt quite slick. It was fast enough. It worked really well, and the plying happened quite quickly. All right, we are going to go into some community participation, and I will see you guys on the other side. All right, so I have no idea what happened, but we used to do a monthly giveaway on the show, and for some reason it kind of just got dropped. I don't really know what happened or why or how I sort of dropped the ball. I have no idea. But I just kind of stopped doing it for some reason. So I wanted to reinstate that. And I am going to ask you guys, I think why I stopped doing it was because trying to get to the comments on YouTube and trying to get to the comments on Patreon, it was just too many places. And then I wanted to get it off of Ravelry because not everybody uses Ravelry. And so I just felt really torn. So because this is a Patreon funded podcast, and because that is my income, and that is how I kind of keep the lights on month after month here, I thought let's do it on Patreon. So it's in the show note. So please comment on the Patreon post associated with this, and I've just thrown the link into the live chat. It's also available down below in the box here on YouTube. what I would love, and actually a couple people have already commented, which is amazing because they obviously read the show notes. For May, I would love for you to tell us what you're most proud of in your making, and then comment below on Patreon. It says in the post on Patreon or on YouTube, but please comment on Patreon. I will edit that after the show. It's just too many places to try to get the comments and do a random number generator and whatnot. I think that's why I kind of just slowly dropped it. And I don't even think I really realized that I had. It just kind of slowly went by the wayside. So tell us what you're most proud of in your making. And what I thought I would do is pull out some fiber in either the blending board or the drum carder or something, and I'll make up a little something to send out. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys about what you're most proud of. Yeah, Jackie's already shared. I'm most proud of my making when my husband and kids asked for a knitted garment, then incorporate it into their everyday wardrobe when it is done. It makes me so happy to make things that reflect their personalities and proud to see them happily wearing them, even though having handmade isn't the norm amongst their peers. That's pretty special. So thank you, Jackie, for being the first one to share. As well, we are working on cotton spinning over the next few months. So we're working on flax this month in the community and next month. And June, July, and August, we're looking at cotton. And then in August, we're looking at, May, June, and July, we're looking at cotton. And then in August, we're going to come back to linen and cotton and look at sort of the uses for the yarns, things to think about, all that kind of stuff. And I would love to hear from those of you like Dion, who posted this morning, what you're working on. And if you want to share a photo, if you want to share some of your thoughts and comments, Dion shared this morning on the Slack channel. Please get in touch and let me know. You can post in the Slack channel and tag me, or you can post in the Ravelry group and again, tag me. And I will share your projects using cotton or spinning cotton with the community in the teaching content. Yeah, Charlotte said another jingle for this yarn possibly, and actually it had crossed my mind. It had, because it'll stripe, and I thought, you know, that would actually look really pretty against something white. Okay, let me find our community participation. I just need to move things around a little bit because I lose my chat when I pull it up. All right, so Rebecca shares, here's my first yarn, a cable that I hope will prove thin enough for socks. It's not dry yet, but I will be measuring it in the morning. And this is our Radnor breed and color study. So this is the first, some of the first yarn that's actually been spun showcasing the breed and color study, which is on Radnor, which we're doing all year this year. So beautifully done, Rebecca. I loved your photos. I just was super excited to see this done. And the cable is just beautiful. Look at those two photos. The top right hand one and the bottom left hand one, that blue and that the corally red color that Katrina's done for us, those two photos are just amazing. Gorgeous. This is from Suzanne. This is just such a happy pick-me-up. This is her first fractal spun yarn on spindle. First fractal spun yarn spun on singles. I'm starting to lose my voice. I used the Turtle Made Mini pictured and my Schneider Turkish spindle. I applied on my Ashford Traveler to accelerate the process of finishing so I could see the results. I am so pleased with the look of this 3-ply fractal yarn. So this is for our spindle spun stitches and our ongoing spindle spinning along that we have going on in the community to celebrate all things spindles. And I love the colors. Like, aren't those colors incredible? Crystal shares, yeah, I don't know, Dion. She said the screen keeps going blurry. I'm not sure I can do anything about that. It looks fine on my end. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Crystal's been doing a ton of support spindling. So she says, I've been having so much fun with spindles lately. I finally finished all the singles for my peach gradient. This was something that I had shared on the podcast quite a while ago. She bought a mini Turkish spindle at Carolina Fiberfest and started spinning some gray Corriedale from Into the World. She loves the overdyed fiber. The complexity and depth of the color always amazes me. So she's on the wait list for 2 more spindles from Alan Berry, and the obsession is growing, but buying more spindles means way more to chip away means more ways to chip away at the stash. It's better than burying more fiber. At least that's how I justify it. This is more from her spindles. She got the new one. I also added another woodland handcraft spindle to the collection, and this is the mini Turk that she was talking about, the little mini Turkish spindle. Isn't that gorgeous fiber? I loved this photo. Yeah. Oh, so Suzanne's fiber here. This is Sheep Spot Polworth Gummy Bear. So this is Sasha's hand dyed. This is called, it's a Polworth in the colorway called Gummy Bear. And actually that cop that's woven, that's wound around the Turkish spindle there, I just thought that was beautiful. Isn't it fun with the Turtle Made spindles to match the color of your spindle that you're going to choose, the 3D printed ones, with your fiber? It's so much fun. It's so nerdy. I love it. Dion shares, I've tried to spin cotton off and on this year with very little success. I tried on a Tackley, on my Daedalus Sparrow, and now on my Aura. I thought I had it on my Aura, but when I started a new spinning session, nothing but breaks. Well, tonight I tried my Daedalus, and I think I finally clicked with my brain and my hands. I've been consistently spinning for about 15 minutes. If it does break, I'm able to get it started again. So to all the new spinners, we all have to start somewhere, and it does get better with practice. So with that said, here's my beginning. The cream is from the cotton bat, and the white is cotton, and then hemp sliver as well. Beautiful. The matchy thing is too fun. Totally. This is from Lee. Second bobbin, first ply. I can't believe I just made yarn. I figured this would become a few mug rugs, but I'm blown away by how much the plying helped my newbie thick and thin inconsistency. Thinking maybe I'll try to eke out a small beanie hat out of it instead. Just throw it with another yarn, and then you don't have to eke out a small beanie. You can make a toque for yourself. Just put another yarn, change the color of the brim, or and then make it the body of the hat, or put in some color work. You could put some black with this, or some white, some gray. It would work really well. If you put black with it, it'll make it look brighter and more intense. If you put white with it, it'll lighten it and make it even like brighter, more vibrant. And if you put gray with it, it'll mute it and make it more dull. And yeah, whatever aesthetic kind of speaks to you. Gray is really modern. But yeah, you could just mix in another yarn because it's beautifully spun, Lee. So go for it. It's lovely. Yeah, that's right, Hannah. It's lovely. Yeah, I suspect it's the internet gremlins. You're right, Hannah. It kept switching for her to the lower resolutions. That's probably what's happening for you, Dion. Yeah, the gaming, it's funny when you've got gaming, it takes up a lot of bandwidth. It's really interesting. So this is from Osk. I thought this was so inspirational. She finished this a month ago. This was a birthday gift for her husband. It's all alpaca except for the darkest brown, which is llama. All the warp is hand spun and natural colors in the weft too. When I started to spin, I drove 100 kilometers away, one way, to an alpaca farm here in Sweden and bought this whole bag of alpaca that she was sending to the mill. I got it very cheap and thought it was a steal. Well, today I would not buy this. It was full of VM and some of the fiber was very coarse. No wonder the seller looked at me that way, like I wasn't okay. The llama was also a bit coarse. The best part was I used up almost every bit of my store-bought alpaca yarn that I had. This was my first project on my 16 shaft. I'm not sure how to say it. Is it Oxaback loom? And the pattern is an 8 shaft from Strickler. My husband was very pleased with his gift, and me too. Yeah, that's amazing, Osk. Thank you so much for sharing. It's just beautiful. The color and pattern in this weaving is incredible. I agree, Suzanne, it's amazing. Welcome, Zan. It's good to have you here. This is from Sarah. I partially shared this with you guys because I just love this photo so much. I don't know what it is. I saw it on the Slack channel and I just loved this photo. I don't know why. It's on the weaving bench. I just loved it. I did it. I spun a full skein using long draw. This skein was way more consistent than my sample skein. I also enjoyed spinning this way. My CPW was truly made to spin long draw. Absolutely. I have decided to spin the rest of this Corriedale Romney fleece long draw, and my goal is to have the future skeins be close to this one. That would be amazing, Sarah, because this yarn is incredible. I have no project in mind, but can find something once it's done. Absolutely. Do some swatching and see what you come up with. See how much yardage you have. So beautiful. Oh, thank you, Osk. So it is, her loom is Oxaback. Sometimes I'm not sure, because sometimes the letters, especially when you have accents and stuff on them, it's hard to know if the sound is changed. Like drawl is supposed to like have like a like havdrawl. You're supposed to like, there's supposed to be a ring in the R, but like we don't speak like that in English, so it's hard to add that in when your tongue's not used to it. So I try to be accurate, but you guys know how that goes sometimes. It's just not always, this doesn't always work. This is from Brittany. I want to take a moment to appreciate these 4 stripes. You see the top and bottom belong to Nora and Torfall, whom I have spun. So Brittany's shared about these sheep and these Gotland sheep and some this fiber that she gets from Alberta quite a few times in the Slack channel. So many of us sort of feel like we know these sheep. And she talked a lot about them on the Woolen Spinning Radio episode last month that Brittany was featured on. So yeah, you if you're wanting to know more about Brittany and what she does and Crux Fibers and all that kind of stuff, and you're a patron of the show, even if you just pledge $1 a month, everybody gets Woolen Spinning Radio. The audio podcast is for everyone. So go back and have a listen to our chat. The 2 middle stripes belong to several sheep from the same flock, which I had a large batch spun at Rosebud River Mill, which I'd actually never heard of in Alberta. I'm knitting a cowl for the shepherdess because heck, she has no time for this. I feel humbled and emotional because I've taken time to get to know Sierra and her flock, who, by the way, I haven't had the privilege to meet in person yet, but hopefully this year. Anyways, I just wanted to encourage you all to see the bigger picture. This is my point of view in this fiber journey, and it's my baby, something I feel so proud to be a part of. So special. This is from Kelly. I was so proud of her. She, this is some kind of sorcery. Love learning on my new to me loom. So she just got a Leclerc Artisan. It was, you know, she went out and bought it and got it, and she's been playing around with lots of stuff on it, and she threw on Patty Graver's Overshot sampler that's in the book. And she started playing with it in her own hand spun. So that green is her own hand spun. Isn't that amazing? I feel like Overshot is like some kind of magic. I get it. I understand the structure. I can talk about it. I could probably even teach it a little tiny bit, like a very, very basic intro class, like incredibly basic. I can talk about it on the show. I can talk about it on Welford Weaves, which is our weaving sort of supplemental podcast that comes out when I have a chance to produce it. And I still think it's magic. So this is from Maria. This is incredible. So from that fleece down there to this, it took about 7 months. That's it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, it probably took like, 2 or 3 years. No, 7 months. Amazing, Maria. This was all 2-ply yarns. I have another knitting project on my needles for myself with 3-ply yarns, and this is a dress for my daughter. Isn't that incredible, you guys? Incredible. Yeah. As one of my friends would say, incroyable. Amazing. Gorgeous. Yes, you guys, gorgeous Maria. Amazing dress. Yeah, just celebrate this for a moment. Just incredible. So that's it for our community participation. We totally ended on a high. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us in the community and for taking the time to post things and to talk about your journey and to talk about what you're working on, what you're doing. It means a lot, and I know that it takes time out of your making time, because you have to pause, take a photo, post about it, do all the things. Text to voice is an amazing time saver. Voice to text. I always say it backwards. Voice to text. If you have not played around with voice to text, I would highly recommend that you get on board. It does save a lot of time rather than sitting there like, typing everything out. Just awesome. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you back here. I just wanted to double check the date because I can never remember, because it's all kind of a blur, to be honest with you. We are back here on the 17th. It's the day before we're leaving for Jasper, Alberta. We're driving up first thing on the morning of the 18th, so that would be really fun to do one last show before we go. And then I'm sure I'll have lots to talk about when we get back. So I'm hoping the next Tuesday there will be a Welford Weaves episode at 12 noon Pacific on Tuesday. My fingers are crossed, my toes are crossed. I'm really hoping. So I hope that I'll see you guys then at 12 noon next Tuesday as well. I'm hoping. I have lots to talk about. It's just getting it recorded. So yeah. Oh, I bet, Zan. Yeah, voice to text is not a fan of my Oklahoma accent, my Okie accent. Yeah. I'm sure it's a little bit tricky if you don't have like that sort of lack of a twang in your voice, I'm sure. So thank you so much, you guys. I totally agree. The community participation is so inspiring. It's what keeps me going. It's really awesome. It's great to hear what everybody's working on. There is a Maker Morning tomorrow morning, Dion. We have a Maker Morning for patrons of the community. So again, anybody can join. You know, even if you pledge $1 a month, it keeps the lights on, you guys. Every little bit helps. At 6:30 Pacific. So if you're around and you want to join in, the links will be posted this afternoon on Patreon. I think at 4 p.m. Pacific is when I have it scheduled for. So we'll see you in the morning. So until next time, happy spinning, happy weaving, happy knitting, happy all the things. I hope you have a wonderful couple of weeks, and I'll see you then. Bye, everyone.